Before I get started, I want to real quick shout out some of the members in my YouTube membership program: Jay Maga, Gabriel T. Black, and of course Ronaldo. They all have YouTube channels. The links are in the description below. I want to thank them for supporting the channel at the top level. Just thank you guys. Just showing your support and love for me has been amazing. So thank you so much. But over the last year, going from Samsung to Apple has been really interesting. I've learned so much about iOS. As a longtime user of Android, more specifically Samsung, all the way back from the Galaxy S2, all the way up to the Galaxy Note 10 Plus, I thought I was kind of indoctrinated into the Android way of doing things. And I guess I kind of was, because when I first moved over to iOS, I had some bumps in the road. Now, here's the thing. I did learn to love a lot about iOS, and there's a tremendous amount of good things that keep me with an iPhone in my pocket, and probably will for all of eternity. It doesn't mean it will always be my main phone, but it certainly will be with me. Some of the things I learned I didn't think even were a thing, had no idea was going to be a thing, and was either pleasantly surprised or absolutely disappointed. And there's still one thing that I absolutely can't stand about iOS. Can't stand it. I don't know why this is a thing. But don't worry, I'll tell you all about it right after this.
This is, you listening to Travis.
What up, players? Welcome back. And for all you new people, welcome. My name's Travis, and I do tech videos every single week and have a blast doing them. If that sounds like fun to you, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Anything I talk about will be in the description below. But for now, let's just get into the video. Now, I've done a couple of videos about my time from Samsung to iOS. I've done, I think, one a couple of weeks after, like one 3 months, one 6 months. I'll leave links to those in the description and maybe in the end card, so you can kind of see like the things that I've gone through over this past year. But we're really literally almost exactly 1 year ago, I got an iPhone 11 Pro Max. I'll tell you why, and then I'll tell you some of the things that that I've learned since then. Now, when the iPhone XS came out, I almost bought that, but I was able to stave off one extra year. I mean, Apple had gotten really close to convincing me to buy an iPhone as my main device, but it wasn't until the 11 Pro that I actually was interested in doing it. Not only that, that combined with what was a good but kind of boring Galaxy Note 10 Plus pushed me over the edge. And it wasn't that the Galaxy Note 10 was a bad phone, the Note 10 Plus anyway. Really wasn't at all. I did a review on it, even talked about how it was a good phone, but I was just kind of bored with it. I think familiarity breeds contempt, and I was just at a point where I just had all the Android I wanted. So I wanted to try something new, and I did. For an entire year, the iPhone 11 Pro Max went with me everywhere, had my main line, and I learned some really cool things about it. And I'll tell you right now, there are some great things about being on an iPhone. One of them is that it just always works. I don't really ever have to worry about it not working. And apps, generally speaking, at least in my opinion, have worked better on iOS. And let me just be clear, I heard that before I came to iOS and I didn't believe it. But now I believe it. Generally speaking, apps work the same on both an iPhone and an Android phone, generally speaking. There are a couple of apps that take advantage, for whatever reason, like Instagram, take more advantage of an iPhone than it does an Android phone, any Android phone. But generally speaking, what you use your phone for is going to work on an iPhone or an Android phone. This actually confuses me when I get a lot of comments talking about the hate that some people have for iPhones or Android phones. Once you open an Instagram app, it's basically the same thing. I mean, basically. There are some differences, but it's the same basic experience. And same thing for like Twitter and stuff. There might be a couple of extra features on iPhone, but why would you hate on it? Like, why do people hate it? You listen, I have a whole series of videos on this. Brand loyalty, maybe I'll leave one in the description. If you are really stuck on one side of the fence or the other, I highly suggest you watch one of those videos. So as long as my apps worked, I had no reason to not at least try it. Now, there were some differences. Of course, the customization of the operating system is not high in priority on the Apple side of the fence. As a matter of fact, it's kind of low, all the way up until recently, where iOS 14 has kind of fixed some of the things that were kind of bugging me about iOS. And I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end. But for now, going into it with iOS 13, that tremendously terrible release of iOS 13, which was buggy as hell, I was really impressed with the hardware on this thing. Now, I actually shoot a lot of the B-roll on this channel with my iPhone 11 Pro Max and have for several months now. No one seems to be able to tell the difference. For the most part, it does a great job, especially outside. And I love that I can count on the camera time and time again, no matter what I'm shooting, whether it be video or audio, This thing is just a beast. And another thing that Apple does really well is it focuses on the vast majority of the things that I need and does them excellently. Basically, and I talked about this before, 80 to 90% of my total needs for a phone are handled perfectly by an iPhone. And that's not to say that an Android phone can't do similar things. I've just had more problems with them. For example, my Galaxy Note 10 and even the Galaxy Note 9, for various reasons, would just literally freeze in the middle of doing nothing and would lock me out of the phone. So much so that I could not power the phone off to reboot it. Two different Samsung phones. Why? And that just hasn't happened here. It's my experience. Maybe it's never happened to you. That's fine. But my experience is I've had some issues, and I have not on the iPhone. So the vast majority of reasons that I use my iPhone for, or really any phone, are just done so well by the iPhone. And then there's things that I never really used before because they weren't on Android that now I really kind of rely on. One of those things is iMessage, which, by the way, before I even got into this, I didn't really think too much. I don't really like texting that much, but iMessage is the truth. Mainly because a lot of my friends and even other tech YouTubers that I talk to have iPhones. And when you have an iPhone and you can message an iPhone, it's magical. There's some really cool stuff you can do. This would be immediately taken away if the vast majority of people that I communicate with were not on an iPhone. Like literally, if my friend circle didn't have a bunch of iPhones in them, then this would not be an issue. This would not be a thing, would not be an advantage. But it is, because I live in America where pretty much the top selling phones are always iPhones. And this will be the case for most of you living in America as well. Maybe not all of you, but a lot of you have iPhone friends. You do. And if you ever had an iPhone and then actually were to use things like Airdrop and iMessage, you would also see what I'm saying. Now, again, I went into this not caring about text messaging at all. Didn't care about it. Now I kind of do. Another feature that I really like is Airdrop, which now I shoot a lot of the B-roll, like I said, using my iPhone, and I just drop it to my iPad, which is what I use to edit all my videos on this channel. As a matter of fact, I ended up getting AirPod Pros and even an Apple Watch, so I'm kind of in the ecosystem. I really wanted to understand what this ecosystem is, and an Apple TV as well. So I have everything except for like a Mac of some sort. So I'm pretty deep in, but that's not gonna keep me there. Just the ecosystem itself is not keeping me there. I mean, for example, I almost never put my Apple Watch on because I'm always home. I guess I would have it on if I was going somewhere, but I rarely go anywhere, especially with this craziness that's going on out in the country. But forget about that. I just generally don't go anywhere anymore. The AirPod Pros are actually really nice if I don't really like the way they sit in my ear, but the call quality on them is excellent. And again, the things you use these things for mostly, they absolutely excel at. And this is one of the things Apple is so excellent at. Getting the basics down, the things that people rely on, down pat. And updates. For example, iOS 14 is amazing. Things like widgets, which of course have lived on Android for many years, are now on iOS. And for me, I think of these things that the gaps that Android has over top of iOS is actually a threat more to Android as iOS starts to bridge those gaps, because all Apple has to do is bridge those gaps and then it becomes basically better than Android because it has an ecosystem above and beyond. And no Android system is better than the Apple ecosystem, period, end of story. I have Samsung devices, I know they have an ecosystem, it's not as good. So if a time ever comes where Apple bridges all of the gaps, which they have not, obviously it's not open source, obviously it's not as customizable, but for a long time, widgets didn't seem like they were gonna be a thing, and they are. And being able to set default apps for certain things, that wasn't a thing, and now it is. If Apple ever decides to bridge all of those gaps, it's gonna get real interesting. But in the meantime, it's cool to be able to go over to Android and have some really cool customizable things. I just bought the Galaxy Fold 2. I did a video about that, I'll leave a link in the description below. And that's kind of the phone that I really wanted to go back to Android on. And it's been really fun, a lot of fun actually. We'll see exactly if that brings me back completely over to Android. I have some kind of concerns about that specific phone. Again, make sure you check out that video to understand my main concerns. Now, one of the things that Apple did a long time ago, which I absolutely love, and I wish Google would get a hold on this, is they really forced the fact that all phones get an update at the same time. As a matter of fact, all devices get their updates at the same time. You want an update on your phone, it happens on one date. AirPods, same date. Apple Watch, same date. Apple TV, same date. Like, do you see what I'm saying here? iPad, same date. And that is powerful, especially when you're adding a bunch of new features. There's nothing like that on the Android side of the fence. This is a major, major plus. And you don't have to worry about carrier updates. It's simply iOS. There's no one standing in the way. You just turn on your phone, get the update, you're off to the races. And that's one of the things that Apple has always had over top of Android. It's really been a big thing for me. If Android could ever get to the point where all updates were completely separate from the carrier, that's a big game changer. And I just don't see anything moving towards that direction. I really would love to see that actually happen. So being locked into iOS is actually a good thing, because if all of your devices can update at the same time, get all these great new features, and you're not held to your carrier to get maybe your phone updated and then your watch or whatever, it's a pretty happy world. And the fact that everything works together so easily and seamlessly, you get used to it. And I know that some tech people that love to watch tech YouTube channels and they love to do customization and stuff, they don't want all that. They don't want it too simple. They think it's too simple, think it's for their grandmother or whatever. Fine, but I don't need to spend 10 minutes doing stuff on my phone just to get it to look slightly different. I just don't need that. And we can talk about updates. Listen, just this year, Google and Samsung made the huge announcement that now you can get 3 years of OS updates when you buy a device, which is laughable to Apple. Apple says, hold my beer. 3 years is a joke. I mean, iOS 14 is on like the original iPhone SE, which came out sometime in the Stone Age. I mean, slam dunking all over Android on this. I don't know why Samsung isn't even more aggressive. This is the first year they finally said 3 years. Apple's been doing this for forever. Like, it's crazy. This is one of the things that Samsung and Google have the ability to change if they really want to, but they just don't want to. There's so many more phones that come out, so they need to turn this stuff over. They can't just allow you to have a phone from many years ago and continue to hold on to it when you've got like 27 other Android phones that have come out in the last 4 months, I guess. Having said that, that's actually one of the strong points of Android that I really like and I really miss being on the iOS side of things. If you don't like the design of an iPhone, you out of luck, son. That's it. Because I hope you like the way this thing looks. If you don't, you ain't getting no iOS. I mean, this is it. That's the look. I mean, this is too bad. Major complaint here for me because the design language isn't always something that I care for. Usually the build quality is excellent, but one of the things I really like about Android are all the different types of phones you can get, including the Z Flip, which the Z Flip and the Z Fold 2 are two completely type of out of the ordinary phones that you can buy on Android that there's no equivalent for on iOS. So I do miss that. Like, that is such a cool thing. Forget about the customization of your icons and stuff. That's great, whatever. But a completely different form factor with different functionality, I do miss. But really the one thing out of all the things in iOS that I just can't stand, and I've talked about this pretty much in every video I've ever talked about my journey through iOS that I just don't like, is the really terrible, unpredictable RAM management. When it comes to my iPhone, if I open up an app, I have no idea if I switch apps, if that app that I originally opened will stay open when I come back to it. The rules are crazy. I've even had some apps close as soon as I multitask out of them. I've had music apps playing music. When I've multitasked out of it, stop playing music and close the app when I'm in the second app. That makes no sense. I'm playing the music, obviously I want to hear it. And like I said a long time ago, if I knew the rules, like if you open 2 apps, the third one will close, then I could abide by them. But I literally don't know. And it's terrible. Now, I don't know if it's a RAM issue, like you need more RAM. It's just a crapshoot. I just don't know. And I've made a huge deal about this, and I think even my boy Viper has talked about this before. It's one of the biggest downsides to the operating system, because I do multitask often. Well, multitask, not even multitasking. Really, it's just swapping between apps. I do that all the time. And not to know whether or not my app that I just left is gonna have to refill in or re-log in at times is absolutely atrocious. I hate that. Listen, I will probably always have an Android phone and an iPhone with me at all times. It's really the best of both worlds. If you can afford it, it's the way to go. Matter of fact, there's tons of inexpensive Android phones if you just want to have something that's not too expensive and then have an iPhone. The people that hate on one side or the other at the other are really missing out on the true absolute hack. And that's being a part of both. Now, whether or not you understand that simple concept, I can't help you with. But I do have some thoughts about brand loyalty, which I'll leave here, and then some other videos about maybe that Z Fold 2 video. You might like that right there. Listen, thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time. Peace and love.